All right, welcome my friends to another episode of Extreme Health Radio. Thank you so much for joining us. We apologize for how late we are. Kate and I have been going through some audio technical issues for a while, so we appreciate your patience with us here. Well, happy Friday, my friends. I hope you guys are having a great day so far and you're enjoying the week and looking forward to the weekend. So we appreciate you guys being here and a lot of cool stuff. We're going to talk today about some cool subjects that are, I guess, highly controversial and maybe go against what the majority of the people in the mainstream alternative health community are saying about sugar, metabolism, hormones, things like that. So this is going to be a really cool show. So come and join us if you guys want to check out the show notes later on. The show notes will be at extremehealthradio.com/628. And everything will be available there. And we do broadcast right now twice a week on YouTube live. So if you want to join us, we're at 10:45 a.m., but it never seems to be 10:45 a.m. because we always have technical issues. So that's when we try to start. It's 10:45 a.m. Pacific time on YouTube, Mondays and Fridays. And sometimes we throw in a Wednesday show as well. So today we have a really great guest, Kate Deering, and I learned about Kate from our good friend, Matt Blackburn, and she was on his show, and when she was on his show, I thought, wow, we need to talk with her because we've done a few shows about kind of the basis of Ray Peat's information, but she's really helping women and men, heal their thyroid and heal their hormones and really get their liver working correctly and their metabolism working correctly. So I really felt like she would be a great fit. And so really honored to have her on the show. And she's been in this field, this crazy alternative natural health field for 20 years. She's the author of a book called How to Heal Your Metabolism. So we'll talk about that. And also after the break, we'll be taking some questions too. If you guys want to join and ask your questions on YouTube, that would be great. Make sure to put them in all caps. That way I can see them. And there's a chance that you might be able to call in via Skype after the first break. So we'll see about that. We'll see if that can work. I highly doubt it at this point. But anyway, so let me bring Kate on the show right now, turn her audio up. Thanks so much, Kate, for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Justin. Appreciate it.
My goodness. Yeah, I'm really excited you're here. And your show with Matt was really great and really eye-opening. And we have done a couple shows based on that same kind of work, which is the work that you do, which is very... it goes against the grain, doesn't it, of the alternative natural health movement. And so tell people a little bit about your story and how you got to where you are today. I think that would be really helpful for people.
Yeah, I have been in the health field for about 25 years. I got out of college, degrees in psychology and exercise physiology, and went into the fitness world. Mm-hmm. And have always been a little obsessed with staying fit, staying lean, and kind of coordinating anything that kept me fit and lean was certainly healthy for me. Mm-hmm. And around the ages of, I have a long story, but we'll just say around the age of 38, I was living in California, and everything I thought I knew about being fit and lean and healthy started to not work for me.
And what was that?
I started having hormonal issues. I started gaining weight. Uh-huh. I started having skin issues, sleep issues. I was losing muscle tissue. And for what I thought I was doing, everything should be working. Mm-hmm. And I was close to 40, so I thought, well, maybe this is just what 40 is like. Uh-oh. And yeah, I was like, everyone said 40 is going to be the downfall, and I didn't believe them, and now it was happening. And so at that point, I fell into the research of Dr. Ray Peat. Mm-hmm. And that's when my whole mind and everything I thought was shifted upside down. Right. And I started to realize maybe everything I had been doing was creating a negative or an unhealthy metabolism, and that's why I was having to work so hard for something that wasn't working anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so when you were doing all that work and thinking you were healthy when you're in the fitness industry, it's funny because the fitness industry, I come out of that as well, and there's so many people in there, and you see what they're eating, and it's just, oh my goodness, it's crazy. But so I was doing the whole plant-based diet at that point myself, and bloated and lethargic and all that. And so you were probably doing something similar at that time?
I was definitely using a lot of, I mean, I've gone through probably a dozen different diets since I've been in the industry, because I've been in it since, I was 22.
Uh-huh.
So now I'm close to 40. So I have done everything from a high plant-based, but it was more of a processed food plant-based, I would
Okay.
say. A lot of soy proteins. When the package industry started coming out with all that, I was like, oh yeah, this must be much more healthy for me.
Right.
At the time when things started crashing down, I was actually eating a pretty organic based diet, but it was really high in muscle meat, low in carb. I wasn't eating a lot of carbs, low in fruit, low in sugars, and some oatmeal and so forth. But it was, protein powders. It was more thinking of, high protein, low carb diet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some of those whey protein powders and things like that can get pretty dicey, right?
They definitely can create some digestive issues and, some uncomfortableness for your friends, per se.
So some of the stuff that we're going to talk about today is, I think, really fascinating to me, because I came across Ray's work years ago. And I think one of our first guests on our show was Danny Roddy back in 2012. And he's obviously into Ray Peat and his work. And so it's interesting because a lot of this stuff flies in the face of what we're learning, right? Or we do learn, or we're taught in the natural health community, which is primarily plant-based. Sugar is bad for you. Milk is bad for you. Liver cleanses and all these types of things that are sort of touted in the natural health community. But, Ray's got a completely different take on all of this, doesn't he?
Yeah, everything he bases his information on is how does your metabolism work and how does human physiology work?
Mm-hmm.
And what we know is that our body runs on sugar, or at least it runs on glucose.
Mm-hmm.
So if you start removing your most vital energy product, then your system is going to start to suffer. And we forget that because we just think nutritional based foods in the natural health community. We think everything high in nutrition, plant-based, things that are going to be natural for our system, when we fail to learn about how is our body actually becoming energized, and when it works the best, what is it utilizing as fuel?
So why do most people tout the ketogenic diet and this whole idea that you should run on ketones and fat should be your fuel, and low sugar, and sugar causes stress and inflammation and all this kind of stuff? Obviously, it must be working for people in some short-term basis, right?
Well, I think it definitely is going to help you lose fat. And I think some people feel better when they start losing weight. I mean, and I also think it depends on the diet that you were consuming before you did a ketogenic diet.
Uh-huh.
So I think sometimes if you remove a lot of different processed foods, I mean, if you're eating a diet primarily of olive oil and avocados and coconut oil and a higher fat, nutritional, I guess they're doing some green-based diet, then it's better maybe than what they were doing before. And I think they're losing a lot of body fat, so yeah, that feels good. And I also think their catecholamines, their adrenaline and cortisol are rising, so that feels good.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think the number one thing is for people's metabolism? What do you think that needs to be fixed, do you think?
The number one thing, well, most people that I work are under eating carbohydrates, and specifically they're under eating carbohydrates that are easy for them to digest. So when the metabolism starts to suffer, every system in your body starts to suffer. So your digestion suffers, your hormonal system, brain function. You might have a hard time putting on muscle tissue and maintaining lean muscle mass. I mean, your body is fueled by sugar. Mm-hmm. And if you remove that vital energy source, you remove the gasoline to your system, then everything starts to suffering, and metabolism lowers to accommodate your lower fuel source. So you just go through an adaptation process of basically creating a lower metabolic rate.
So it's true, right, that glycogen is stored in the liver, and that's where it's stored, right? And that's what helps to fuel our metabolism. Is that correct?
Glycogen is stored in the liver and in your muscle tissue. But to maintain blood sugar levels, you're getting it from your liver.
Interesting. Right. So if people's livers are screwed up and not working correctly, then that's going to be a real issue.
Yeah, most people in a hypometabolic state are not storing enough liver glycogen, and they're usually having blood sugar issues. That's why they're not sleeping through the night. I mean, if you don't have good liver glycogen, you're going to wake up all through the night.
Huh. So what happens in the middle of the night? You get a rise in cortisol because of the lack of sugar. Is that correct?
It's exactly. Yeah, you're going to spike in adrenaline, spike in cortisol. It's there to regulate you. I mean, your body's number one job is to keep you alive. And so for it to happen, it's not to procreate, it's not to gain muscle, it's not to do any of those things. It's to keep you alive. And so the survival hormones are always going to respond when it feels like it's not going to get enough energy. And if all of a sudden blood sugar drops in the middle of the night, then the stress hormones will respond to break down tissue or release sugars to help regulate you. And they're going to wake you up.
Are you finding with your clients that people are sleeping better through the night, I would imagine?
Yeah, in time. I mean, this isn't an immediate fix, and I think that's where a lot of people have trouble utilizing this information, is because I think we've been conditioned in the health community that everything is a 30-day, 60-day, 90-day fix.
Right.
And, not to say you won't get improvements in those period of time, but you're not going to be fixed. I mean, if you've been eating low carb or keto or whatever diet for the last 20 to 30 years, you're not going to be fixed in 3 months. You're going to get better.
Yeah.
But you're not going to be fixed.
Yeah, I had a similar issue. I first got involved in all this in about 2003, I think. And I did a, sort of a conventional, non-conventional raw food diet. So I was doing like from 2003 to 2010, I did 100% raw food vegan. And my teeth suffered, and I was constantly bloated, and my energy was low. And then fortunately, I sort of woke up and started adding some animal foods. But man, it takes a toll on you. And I think what happens with people is that they continually just keep telling themselves that this is good and this is right and this is the way I should be doing. And even though their body's saying something different, right?
100%.
Yeah.
I think your brain is very powerful. And if you've conditioned yourself to think that what you're doing is correct, and I know I have done that. I mean, I pushed myself to a very tough, to a level where things were getting so much worse, but I kept thinking, I just need to eat cleaner. I just need to work out harder. I need to do more. And because that was my belief system, and it was working against me. And, you struggle a lot because you're like, what am I doing wrong? I'm doing everything right.
Yeah, and you're the one that's sort of coaching people and telling people how to live and how to eat and all these things, and you're struggling, but you don't want to tell anybody, right? It's funny.
Well, yeah, 100%. I mean, you'll try to link it to other things in your life, I think. Not ever believing it could be possibly your workout program and your diet, because you are very ingrained, and when you've been into a system for 20 years. You have a hard time getting out of that belief system.
Mm-hmm. So most of your clients, are they coming out of what kind of diets are they coming out from, and what are they seeking you for?
I would say most of them are coming from a low carb approach.
Uh-huh.
A lot of them have gotten lean. I actually work with a lot of post-fitness professional women who have maybe done fitness comps or have been in the industry or have gotten really, really lean. And now they're starting to suffer. They can't get pregnant. They're not sleeping. They are having other hormonal issues. They're starting to gain weight. Kind of my story. And so at this point, they're looking for other options because they kind of realize that what they were doing wasn't working. Yet they're also struggling because they don't want to gain weight and get heavy. I mean, that's the biggest thing with most people, isn't it? We won't want to gain weight. Nobody does.
Right.
But so there's a psychological compartment you have to work through with them, because it is a possibility that could very well happen.
Yeah, it's funny because I come from the fitness industry. I've been working out, at least 3 to 5 days a week for, 20 plus years. And, I still work out and I love it. But it's funny because when you get purely involved in that world, the whole sort of idealism is that you look that lean and shredded look. But I've heard people say that who do those competitions, and people talking about people doing the competitions, coaches and things like, at that point, when the people are on stage and they've got 3% body fat and they're just ripped and lean and shredded, like some people fall over and pass out. Some people have real medical issues. And that's the point in their whole year that they're the most unhealthy, is when they're on the stage looking the healthiest. But I mean, nothing can be further from the truth, right?
100%. And I mean, I think, there's a whole industry that we've created, and people like to be like, I want to look this lean. I mean, a lot of women like being really, really lean, and I don't think it's necessarily that healthy for them. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you're missing your period and you have your period for 6 months, that's not a good thing.
Right.
And sometimes it takes a little bit of a time to kind of fix yourself to get back to a place where you're healthy. And sometimes a little bit of extra body fat needs to occur. But, especially for women, we live in a tough world where they have to be the good employee, the executive, the mother, super lean and fit. I mean, everything comes along with that, and it's a tough, and it's a lot of stress for their system. And then all of a sudden they find out like I said, they start having hormonal issues, sleep issues, and things start going really downhill for them.
Mm-hmm. And this is an idea that Ray talks a lot about, is stress, right? And there are a lot of things that are stressful to our physiology, to our nervous system, that we don't think about. Like one thing that Ray talks about, which I still can't wrap my mind around this, is that, complete and total darkness when you're sleeping is a stress to the body. And so, but that presupposes that stress is always a bad thing. Stress, in my opinion, sometimes is a good thing, during a workout, or, if you're running from a lion or something. But stress is really the number one issue when it comes, it seems to me, to metabolism, right? Because this constant stress on the body is not making it work correctly, right?
Yeah, I mean, too much stress than your body can handle, and this could be different for everybody. So mm-hmm. Stress isn't the same for everybody, or at least what's going to create a downhill spiral for them, is antagonistic to high thyroid function. So usually a highly stressed individual is going to have poor thyroid function.
Yes, and it seems to me that so many people are having thyroid issues. This is a real problem. Like I just learned the other day that my dad has been on a thyroid medication, and it's my understanding that he was never on any medications, but I just learned he was been on some thyroid medication for the past 40 years, and I didn't even know it. But wow. This is a real issue with people, isn't it?
For sure. I think because our society is so stressed. I mean, mm-hmm. Think about we have light and not just sunlight, but like unnatural light. Mm-hmm. Computers, TVs, phones, social media, they're going 24/7. Life doesn't stop anymore. It's ongoing.
Yeah.
And then you have jobs and your family and kids, and the entire world is so available to you right now, but it also becomes another stress to you. So we don't get to shut things off anymore. And that's creating a lot of stress within people's systems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's crazy too. People are working, and you used to be able to get off work at 5 or 6 o'clock, and that was it. But now, you're on your phone, and now you're taking your work with you. And like you said, even if you work for somebody else, like people that work for themselves, typically it's hard to turn that off, and we all feel that. But then if you're working for someone else, you think that your job's going to end at 6 o'clock, or 5. But people are just working around the clock. It's nuts.
Yeah. It's 100% nuts. It's a whole different world. And I think, and that's why when people start talking about different diets and different cultures are doing at different periods of time, and they, maybe they had grains or whatever they might have eaten, it's very different in today's world, and this is why I like Ray's approach, because it's a very anti-stress diet, because it revolves around things like sugar, which we know help bring the stress hormones down, or salt would help bring the stress hormones down. And these are major components of this kind of diet that I think we've all failed or misunderstood about how they work within the human body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the prevailing approach is that sugar causes cancer, sugar causes diabetes, sugar causes stress and inflammation, and sugar is the number one issue for people, and it all ties back to sugar. And you see these memes around social media about how bad sugar is, and you're saying, and Ray Pete and other people that are looking further into this work, that it's completely the opposite, right?
Exactly. Yeah, because when you understand your body, you understand that it runs on sugar. Now, we've all gone through an adaptation. I think a lot of people that don't work well on sugar, either they don't metabolize it. You know, when you get very stressed, you release a lot of fat into the blood. And when that occurs, the fat will compete with the sugar to get into the cell. So for a lot of people, you end up with insulin resistance, you might end up with diabetes, you might get a lot of other negative things occurring that you might relate to sugar and say it's sugar's fault. But normally what it is, it's the stress system that doesn't utilize sugar well because of the stress you put upon it, whether it's through your life, through the poor diet, through over-exercise, whatever it is. It's created a body that doesn't utilize sugar as well, but it's not sugar itself. Because in a healthy body, you utilize sugars really well, and that is what's going to fuel your metabolic rate.
Yeah, it's fascinating. When I was watching a documentary a while back, and they showed, what is it called, persistence hunting in Africa, where people will hunt an animal for days. Like they'll take turns and they'll constantly just, hunt this animal down and track it and hunt it, and the animal finally collapses and dies. And these same people, a couple days later, will find a beehive, and they'll just eat. Like they'll just eat tablespoons or just huge gobs of straight honey.
Like a pound of honey.
It's crazy. Isn't that wild? I mean, it's not, but it seems wild, right?
Yeah. I mean, but I think like in the natural setting, we know we need that energy source. It's a pure energy source. And like I said, when the body works well, that's what it wants. And that's why, in the human body, if you don't use sugar well, or you're not using sugar, let's say you're restricting it, a couple things will happen. One, your metabolism will drop. And two, if you don't have enough sugar, you'll produce your own through gluconeogenesis.
Interesting. So why would your body not be utilizing sugar well? Is it mainly the stress like you just mentioned, or are there lots of factors as to why?
Well, when the body gets stressed or you don't consume a lot of sugar, the next source of energy is probably going to use as a fat source. I mean, it's also going to break down protein to regulate blood sugar because for the most part, fat doesn't turn into sugar. And you have to have a constant flow of blood sugar. So, preferably the brain uses it, but there are some cells in your body that's all they ever use as energy is sugar. So we have to have it. There's obviously a discussion on how much you essentially need. Now that, I mean, obviously keto people say, to survive, you only need, I don't know what they say, 50 grams or so forth for us to survive. Mm-hmm. But that's to survive. To thrive, it's ideal to consume much more because, again, your body's always going to use sugar first because that's what it prefers. So if it's available, that's what it's going to use.
And then forcing your body to do something that it's not designed to do, like a ketogenic diet. And for some reason, I've never gotten into the ketogenic diet. I've seen for a while that there seems to be some benefit in people getting results, but I've never really played with it too much. But it seems like you're metabolically forcing the body to do something that it's not designed to. Because like you said, if it uses sugar first and is able to utilize sugar, then it will do that. And if you feed it sugar, then it will only do that, right? For the most part?
For the most part, yeah. I mean, if sugar's available, that's what it's going to consume.
Uh-huh.
And so, I mean, I wouldn't say it's not designed to do a ketogenic diet. I mean, because I think it's just utilizes a survival technique in the absence of sugar. That it creates a ketogenic environment to keep us alive. Again, we have to always remember our body's trying to keep us alive versus anything. Mm-hmm. So it will convert into these other states of fuel, but it's just not ideal. And I think because we're such a society revolving around fat loss, that we think a diet that would utilize more fat must be the best diet.
Yeah, it's interesting because there have been people coming on our shows, like really accredited people, and got 1,000 degrees behind their name, and all these letters and stuff, and they'll say things like, well, dissolved, as far, in the human bloodstream, there's only like a teaspoon of dissolved sugar, and anything, beyond that is the body's unable to utilize it. So basically, if you eat, 5 tablespoons of sugar, your body can deal with the first tablespoon, but not the other 4 because it's just a metabolic overload. But what you're saying and what Ray Peat's saying is like it could utilize the other tablespoons of sugar, but the reason why it's not is because of all these other factors. And we shouldn't just say that sugar, it's too much sugar when the body's just not working correctly.
Yeah, I mean, again, your body is always going to adapt to the stressors you put upon it. And if you don't feed it sugar, it'll adapt to a different type of diet. It'll utilize fats, it will use like protein. Are those ideal for long-term health? I don't think so. I mean, I think one of the factors is that you can just look at societies in general. There are no long-living societies that eat a ketogenic diet. Majority, in fact, all of the long-living societies, the majority of their diet is carbohydrates. So, and I'm not saying we should always take on other societies and say, well, that's the ideal way. However, again, when you come back to physiology and you understand, okay, if our body is designed to use sugars initially as it's always its number one fuel, why would you try to push it into a secondary resource as fuel? It doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, and I think the ketogenic diet does have some positive for some people that are sick, if you're epileptic or some brain issues and so forth, it's definitely shown to be beneficial for these people. But for a normal, healthy human being, I don't think it's the ideal diet.
It's interesting because there's people like, there might be some context with this too, because, you know, there's people we've talked to that are overcoming their brain cancers using a ketogenic diet. But you don't know because you would almost have to clone those people and do two separate diets to really find out
100%
what's going on, right?
I mean, it's hard to say that when you hear someone say, I did this and it made me feel better, but it's like, well, what if you'd done a different diet? Would that make you even feel better? Or we don't know, because you're right.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I think too. I mean, we don't really know. Just because something is making you feel better and healing you, something could make you feel even better than that, or it's really challenging because you don't know what's actually the cause of some of these things. Like maybe all the supplements and lifestyle changes and stuff of the lady that we're speaking with that had the brain cancer and the brain tumor, maybe those are moving the needle a little bit more than the actual diet, you know?
Yeah, and I would agree. And I'm a deep believer that I think diet is probably about 30 to 40% of the equation, even though that's what I deal with. I think your other lifestyle choices and your other stressors can be a bigger component to your healing process.
I agree. So what are your thoughts about the people who say, like, cancer cells, for example? This is an issue that now, as of 1960, 1 out of every 2 people are being diagnosed. It used to be 1 out of every 3 women before 1960 and 1 out of every 2 men. But prior to that, it used to be like 1 in 50 or 1 in 100. So the rates are rising, and they always say that there's 7 to 10 times more receptor sites on cancer cells for sugar than an average normal cell, and it's starting to utilize sugar as fuel, and that's how it grows. What are your thoughts about that? Something's obviously going wrong there, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess when you have to look at it back into physiology, because if you actually look at a cancer patient and try to remove something like sugar from their diet, guess what happens? I mean, their body becomes completely catabolic, and the sugar consumes all their muscle tissue, thymus, immune system, everything else. So I think cancer cells do consume an enormous amount of energy, but the point being is if you don't feed it other resources, it's just going to consume your entire body and utilize that as a resource. So I don't think that's technically the answer. I mean, I'm not here to tell people how to treat their cancer, but I think, again, when you look at how the body works, if you're not going to feed it enough sugars to maintain what the amount of energy it needs, it's going to consume your system, your body, your thymus gland, your tissue, your muscle, and everything else, and utilize it. Use that as its energy source.
Now, you said something that was really interesting to me at the beginning that we kind of just glossed over, but I thought it was fascinating that you're talking about like someone's diet, you know, for decades or years before they switched to this way of eating, this anti-stress diet consuming sugar. And that is the context of someone destroying their glands. Let's say, for example, that the ketogenic diet or the natural plant-based diets, all the stuff that's the opposite of what Ray Peat says. Let's say that's actually destroying our cells. And if someone does that for 20, 30 years, would they want to move more slowly into the repeat information, into the work that you do, so that to take into context their damaged organs so that they can start lowering that stress and start utilizing sugar? Because it's almost like taking a damaged person and putting them in the right environment, but they still have to heal first. So that transition, it seems like, would get tricky, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a good point, and I agree with you 100%. And I think that's where a lot of people get in trouble when they get onto this diet, is that they go way too fast.
Yeah.
And they convert, whether they're low carb or whether they're plant-based, and all of a sudden they're like dairy and tons of fruit and tons of muscle meat or whatever it is that they're doing. That anytime you shift a diet on any way too quickly, I think it's another stress on the system. And you're trying to lower the stress, so you have to go quite slow, especially when incorporating sugars into your diet. And so normally if I work with someone, I always want to know what they're doing prior to shifting. And then we might go, so some people are doing like 80-90 carbs a day. So instead of maybe they need 300 to heal, but we might start them at 120 and slowly work themselves up until their body can slowly adapt to the shift, so they won't have a lot of the the weight gain or all these negative things that can happen if you move too quickly.
Yeah, because I remember when I first became raw food kind of a guy, it was funny because you'd see these people going like 100% raw food overnight. So they were eating these huge giant salads, and they were sort of being touted as being people that have a lot of discipline and they're really great and rah, look how great they are, and they're eating these huge green salads every day, and they're eating 100% raw. But my goodness, like our bodies aren't designed to really change no matter what diet you're doing, right? Like if you change something overnight, it's such a shock to the system.
Yeah, 100%. And the sicker you are, or if you have more of a hypometabolic state, the more challenge it's going to be, because again, your body is probably not producing the enzymes it needs to anyways. You probably have low hydrochloric acid. So you start doing all of these shifts, and your body is going to hate you. And then you're going to come back and say, that didn't work. This was the worst thing I've ever done. And again, so you have to go, as you always say, you have to meet the body where it's at.
Yeah.
And if it can't digest all of these foods, then you have to slowly start shifting it until it can work up and heal itself enough to start being able to process a lot of these things, especially things like dairy. A lot of people can't break down dairy.
Yeah, I want to talk about that.
Add it in slow. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I want to talk about that. We're going to take a little break right now, but I want to talk about dairy. I want to talk about some of these foods and maybe what you're eating these days and see how that's working for you. And we're going to try to take some questions too after the break as well. So stay tuned, guys. If you guys want to check out Kate Deering, her site is katedeering.com, and she's got a whole book there, and you can work with her on Skype and a lot of cool stuff. So we'll be right back right after this.
You're listening to Extreme Health Radio, and I hope you're enjoying this show. Please share it with your friends by tagging @Extreme Health Radio on Instagram. Stay tuned for new shows weekly.
Yeah, my friends, stay tuned. Doing 2 shows a week, and it's just a lot of fun. So if you are on Instagram, I'd love to have you a part of our little community there, and just tag us and let us know what you're up to, and let us know what you think of the show, and I'd love to hear from you on there. And so we're doing a lot of work recently. We recently did a show with Mr. Ken Rolla all about 5G technology, and we're talking about dirty electricity. And he did a whole entire workshop in our academy that was really fascinating. It was a 2.5-hour workshop, but we talked all about 5G, wireless technology, dirty electricity, ambient EMF, stray voltage, all these types of things. But one of the things that we talked a lot about was this dirty electricity in the walls. It's actually affecting our blood sugar, according to Dr. Magda Hoppus. We did a show with her back on episode 25, and there's a lot of things going on with this dirty electricity in the walls, and fortunately there's ways to mitigate it. But check out what Ken has to say about that.
Dirty electricity, what that does and what it is actually, for people that aren't aware, is when the power company is generating electricity and sending it to you, they don't have a constantly perfect steady supply of 120 volt 60 hertz electricity pulsing to you perfectly every time. It fluctuates quite a bit, and if you put meters on it, you can see it'll fluctuate. And so that fluctuation, and there are micro fluctuations as well. And those micro fluctuations, all that fluctuation creates these pulses in the wiring that will create EMF pulses around you. I mean, the wires themselves, when electricity is flowing through them, that will create a field around the wires that can affect you. But then when you've got all that little pulsing and micro pulsing going on, it's creating these frequencies of fields that are pulsing and affecting you negatively. And so those devices like the Greenwave, they will act like an inductor and smooth that signal out so you don't get that pulsing. And then my devices, because of the scalar fields, they will structure the EMF coming off of the wires in your house and everything else as well. I use those. I use Stetzer filters and Greenwave. I got both.
Yeah, and one of the things that we talk a lot about is making sure that your environment is conducive to cellular healing, and so when you have these stresses on the body, it's really like profound in terms of what it does to our cells. Anytime there's wiring in the walls, it's going to have an electric field coming off of it, as well as a magnetic field coming off of it. And that's why in German medicine, they always say if you want to heal, move your bed 3 or 4 feet away from the wall because of this dirty electricity. And I don't know why we switched, or we initially went with AC current when we should have been using DC current, which is more harmonious to the human body. But fortunately, these Greenwave filters are awesome. So you can buy a little meter with it, and you can do a little before and after, and you can see how much electricity and how much voltage is coming off. So if you guys are watching on YouTube and you have a child or you want to improve your sleep, I highly recommend putting these things near your bed and plugging them into the wall, especially for your children as well. We're learning recently too that 5G is now jumping onto the dirty electricity in your walls. So the 5G is actually making the dirty electricity in your walls even worse. So a great way to mitigate all that is through these Greenwave filters, and we're just a big fan of them, and from our friend Brian Hoyer, who originally told us about them. So check those out. The Greenwave filters, if you're watching on YouTube, there's a link for that down below, and you can learn more about that on their website and in our store too. And something else I wanted to share with you too was one of my favorite foods is this survival colostrum. This stuff is so good. Let me bring it up on the screen for you here, and you can check it out. But here's what Daniel Vitalis has to say about this.
So our colostrum comes from cows all over the United States, and it's only U.S. cows. That's important because most of the colostrum coming into the U.S. market comes from other countries where there are really different regulations. All of our colostrum is U.S., and all of our colostrum goes through a series of testing looking for traces of pesticides, heavy metals, herbicides, and anything like that would be a contaminant, to include genetically modified bovine growth hormones. So our colostrum is actually the cleanest grade on the market, but it's also the most intact grade as well. And when I say that, I mean that it's really rich in all of its oils, which is another important part, because a lot of the colostrums that are available out there have been stripped of their fats in an effort to try to keep a poorly dried colostrum from becoming rancid. Our colostrum is dried really well, and so it's intact. So in addition to being really clean, it also tastes really good, really creamy, because it still contains its full complement of lipids.
So it seems like it would be a really good addition to smoothies. People can bake with it too, cook with it?
Yes, you can use it anywhere you would use a sort of almost like a protein powder or like a powdered milk. I like to use it in smoothies. That's my favorite way, but it's also really nice in desserts. So people who like to make things like chocolates or puddings, they become wonderful in that. They're really great for making homemade ice creams with, things like that as well. But if you make blended drinks, this is one of the most optimal additions to your smoothie regimen.
Yeah, my friend, I just love this stuff. We use it every single day. I use it for our coffee drink that we do in the morning. It makes it super clean and super creamy, and it's such an amazing substance. And our kids have been on it since they've been born. And I just love this stuff a lot. So if you guys want to check it out, it's really great and tremendous for helping to heal the gut lining and the gut tube, which is one of the most beneficial things about it, but also increasing the immune system and bringing in those immune factors as well. And so colostrum is a really great thing for helping to heal leaky gut and improve digestion. And so I just love this stuff. You can get it from a company that we really like, which was surthrival.com, and that's available at biocharge.me. If you're watching on YouTube, there'll be links down below. And if you are listening to the podcast version, just go to extremehealthradio.com/628. And whenever you buy some, if you go through our store, it will help support the work that we do. So we appreciate your constant support. So we really appreciate that a lot. And we're going to be back with Kate in just a second. But if you guys have any questions in the YouTube chat, make sure to enter them in all caps. That way I can see them quickly and easily. And there may be a chance if you call us on Skype at Extreme Health Radio, we may be able to take your call there. No guarantees, fingers crossed, but we'll see. So we'll be right back.
This is Extreme Health Radio, where we're 100% listener supported. Make sure to join the Extreme Health Academy with thousands of other listeners and get real solutions for your health challenges.
Yeah, guys, if you guys want to join the Extreme Health Academy, that would be amazing. I'd love to connect with you further in the forums, and we're creating a health database with answers and solutions to all your health questions and things and protocols and all that kind of good stuff. And there's a forum in there with thousands of other people that we connect with on a daily basis, and we're going back and forth, helping each other, supporting each other with our health and all that. So new courses every single month, courses that I think should have been taught in school, but for some reason we're not taught how to take care of ourselves in school. Kind of have some reasons as to to why that is, but maybe I don't know, maybe they want people sick, who knows. Let me turn Kate's mic back on, and we'll bring her back in, and also ask her, because we kind of talked about this before the break, when she's answering this question, I'll look for questions in the chat room, but Kate, I'm curious about your diet these days and what it used to be, because I remember you talking with Matt about how you used to eat pounds of green salad and all that kind of stuff, and now you're kind of switched completely, and I'm sure feeling a lot better too, right?
100%. And I've been doing this for probably about 8 years now, and when I first switched, I was I switched everything. I was the person that did everything the wrong way. I did everything very quick and fast, and some negative things that happened. That's where I certainly learned that slow is much better. But I used to have at least 2 huge salads every day. I suffered from quite a bit of bloating with all the activity and everything I was doing. I always had a kind of a pooch, and which no woman loves.
Right.
And and I had a lot of chicken. It was probably like my number one protein. I mean, I probably had chicken at least once or twice a day. Lots of egg whites, almond milks. I did the soy milk for a while, but I learned quicker that was not a good idea.
Right.
But some fruit, usually the berries. Certainly no dairy. I avoided sugar like the plague.
Right.
But I mean, from what my understanding was a very clean diet.
Yeah, I a lot of people are doing that these days, and I think suffering as a result. And so we have a question here from a regular listener, and I love her a lot. Her name on YouTube, it's funny, I love it. It's Big Fat Mama. But she says, if you're trying to gain weight as naturally as possible, how do you suggest this? I don't have any health issues that I know of, but eating loads of butter and starch doesn't work. Laughing out loud, only processed food. Interesting.
So she wants to know how to gain weight?
Yeah, which is interesting, right? I mean, for a woman, that's typically not the question you get.
I mean, essentially, to gain weight, you've got to eat more calories than your body's going to utilize. I mean, obviously, it's more ideal to eat. I mean, you can eat high caloric foods. I'm not saying eat butter, but you can certainly eat a good amount of dairy, fruits, potatoes. I mean, all of those foods in larger quantities are going to make you gain weight. But if she's not able to gain weight, I mean, I'd have to probably look at her health. Is she losing a lot of weight because of stress? Or is it because you have a really high metabolism?
Yeah, and if your metabolism is too high, what is that saying about somebody?
Okay, so what does it mean by too high? I mean, if you're healthy, your metabolism is going to be high. I don't know about too high, because if you're burning lots of calories and you're not healthy, it's usually because you're in the stress cycle. And so you can burn lots of calories and not have a high metabolism. You're basically just in a stress cycle, and stress hormones can utilize a lot of energy.
Okay, interesting. All right, let's do Another question. Sue Lady wants to know, I've been on thyroid medications for 15 years and love carrot and beet juice. But are root veggies bad for your metabolism, or do these veggies have a negative effect on your health? Thank you. From Sue Lady.
Well, when we say root vegetables, it could mean a lot of different things. So I'm a big fan of the raw carrot because it can be very beneficial for gut health. You want to eat it in the raw state. I wouldn't eat the carrot in the cooked state. If you follow mine and Ray's research, usually people in a hypometabolic state aren't converting beta carotene very well. So raw vegetables and even cooked, actually worse, you're going to get a lot of beta carotene. So you're going to look like more of the orange person if you have that.
Right.
But other roots, I mean, I'm a big fan of root vegetables. I think they're the safest form of vegetable. All the other ones I would cook really well and usually eat them with some sort of fat to help with digestion. A lot of people don't utilize starch very well. Because of the starch, it's a little bit harder for the body to break down. Simple sugars are easier for the body to get energy from. But the starches also slow the use of the sugars into your system. And so for some people that can't utilize sugars well, sometimes it's a better option. So the thing about food is there's not really any clear as what's good or bad. It's what works for you.
So I'm curious about your thoughts, because you recently posted something on Facebook that I found interesting, and you're talking about metabolism, carbohydrates and things. And I'm curious about your thoughts about milk, because this is like, people in the natural industry will say, well, there's this big milk campaign, and if the government is trying to get people to drink milk, it's got to be bad, right? And then, but then you're in the natural health field, and then you're saying, no, milk is actually healthy for you. And so I'm curious, your thoughts about milk and possibly why people should start consuming it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big advocate of milk. I think the quality is important. I think it's coming from a good grass-fed source is important. I mean, what you have to remember is cows are filtering this food for us. So it's a pre-filtered food. A lot of the impurities are removed. As long as it's not a conventionally farmed cow, I think it's a good source of, actually the best source of calcium. And what we know about calcium is it's utilized better and absorbed better when it comes with a source of sugar. So milk provides you with enough protein, fat, and sugars, and that helps with the utilization of the calcium in the system. So for me, it's the best source of calcium. I also think it's just a complete food because it comes with all your macronutrients, fats, carbs, and protein.
I was just listening to an Ayurvedic doctor recently who said a couple really interesting things about milk, and I thought this was just fascinating. And one of the things that she said was that milk, unlike any other food, is actually able to be absorbed into the tissues, I think, within 48 hours, whereas most other food, it takes a couple weeks or a week to actually be absorbed all the way into the tissues. And she was saying that milk is almost the perfect food because of that. But she also said that, she's Ayurvedic in her philosophy, but she also said that milk should be consumed after you boil it. Drinking raw milk is definitely not good for you. And I don't know, do you have any thoughts about that? It's an interesting take.
Yeah, to me, it depends on the person. Because some people, everyone says, if you're going to drink milk, drink raw milk because it's more alive. It has that kind of the probiotics in it. When you cook it, the enzymes are killed. But for some people, they don't do well on raw milk. If you look at the Weston prices, people, they love raw milk. But then there are people I've worked with that do horrible on raw milk. So they actually do better on a pasteurized or even ultra pasteurized milk. So to me, it's always about finding what works for that individual. To me, a food is all about how does it be utilized and absorbed into the system. If you're having problems with it, regardless if it's a good milk or a good food, it's not good for the person. So you have to find either a different brand. In the United States, I feel like we've done a lot of destruction to our food quality here. And so some people can't utilize a lot of the milk products here, but they might go over to Europe and then they have absolutely no problems with it. So,
Yeah.
we have to find out what works for us. Honestly, if you don't digest milk right now because of a lactose issue or some of that sorts, then I think you got to do some work on your gut and on your small intestine, and then maybe incorporate dairy products into your diet very slowly until that you can digest them, because you can kind of relearn and to utilize foods properly if you go very slow.
Mm-hmm.
And I've talked to many people that have thought that they were lactose intolerant, but then we incorporated good sources of dairy into their diet on a slow level, and they utilize milk perfectly now.
Yeah, it's funny because I stopped drinking milk in my early 20s because of my inability to digest them anymore. But recently I've been doing like that colostrum. I did a little spot for. I do that. I do butter. Sometimes I'll do a little bit of cream. I'll do some ghee, things like that. And so I'm curious, if I were to go back to drinking milk again, I wonder if I would have built up those enzymes.
Yeah, I mean, because the fat doesn't have a lot of lactose in it, so I would say maybe start with like a goat's milk that's a little bit easier to digest, and literally like a tablespoon.
Yeah.
And do that for maybe a week, and if you can process that, then add in another tablespoon. Because I think your small intestine can learn to produce the enzymes again. I think you just can't do it too quickly.
Yeah. This Ayurvedic lady was interesting too, because she was saying that although she fully understood and realized that when you boil the milk, you're going to lose all those enzymes. And she said, yeah, that's not a good thing. But what happens is that you're getting all these pathogens and viruses and things that are floating around in raw milk. And so that's the idea behind boiling it. So she said what she does is have people add some cinnamon to help digest those sugars, and some cardamom to help digest some of the proteins that are in the milk after you boil it. And it tastes better, and it's really easily absorbable and digestible. I've never tried it, but interesting idea.
Yeah, I mean, because isn't essentially that's what pasteurization is? It's heating the milk and killing these things, thinking that we are getting pathogens in the milk, and so it's essentially making it safer for us. That's assuming that there are pathogens in it, but the thought is behind raw milk that if it comes from a good source, that those things are definitely minimized.
Mm-hmm. What do you say to the people that say, why would we consume milk as mammals and drinking the milk of a cow after we're 1 or 2 years old? It doesn't make sense because we lose those enzymes, and we should only be drinking human milk. And and it seems to make sense to not drink milk on a biological level, but just because it makes sense doesn't mean that's accurate either. I think there's some nuance and context to all of this. Sometimes it might make sense to make a green juice or some kind of juice or some kind of really healthy food that you would never find in nature, but it could be good for you in that time, in your life, in that season for a while. And so I'm curious what your thoughts are about this idea that it's not natural to drink the milk from another mammal like that.
I definitely have that. Yeah. It's not natural to fly on a plane. It's not natural to drive a car. It's not natural to be talking to you through the internet right now.
Right.
But as intellectual human beings, we find ways to get the best sources of foods with the most nutrition for us. And utilizing the milk of another mammal that we know is a quality food source is just part of why we've evolved more than other animals. I mean, I think all mammals would probably utilize the milk of others if they could. But we as highly intellectual human beings have learned to utilize milk from other mammals and use it to our advantage.
Yeah, I agree. That's a good answer. So my wife wanted me to ask you during the show today for her a question about her, and she was wondering. We had twin baby boys, and they're about 14, 15 months old now. And she has a big thyroid in her uterus, or attached to the wall of her uterus. And she's having a heck of a time trying to get her belly to go down after the birth of our 2 kids. So for all women out there who have given birth, so this question kind of pertains to everybody, what are some ideas that you can give for Kate and for other women that have given birth, and she's not necessarily trying to lose, it's not necessarily the losing weight or losing fat, in as much as that pooch is still there. And she's not much more in terms of her weight, but the pooch is still there, and the bloating and things like that from the pregnancy with twins. And so do you have any thoughts or ideas about that?
Well, not knowing her diet, it makes it a little bit more challenging because, it could be an excess estrogen issue.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, usually a lot of belly fat, it could be a stress issue. So I don't, again, I don't know what she's eating, so wouldn't know what to change for her. But usually creating a non-stress environment for the body is going to be the best option to get rid of something like a poochy belly.
Mm-hmm.
Unless it's something physiological that changed when she had the baby. I mean, did she have a C-section or did she have them naturally?
We were going for a home natural birth with twins, which I give her so much credit for, but we had some complications at the very end with the cord and things, and so it actually was a C-section.
Yeah, which that can make it a little bit more challenging because they had to move muscle around. You're probably dealing with a lot of scar tissue at this point. I don't know if she's tried some sort of massage methods for that.
Mm-hmm.
But if she's having like digestive issues, then I would have to look at her diet and see what is being, what is hard for her that is causing digestive issues. And, and part of what I recommend to people is when they're having issues like that is to remove a lot of the foods that are hard to digest, which include things like nuts, seeds, legumes, beans, raw vegetables outside of the raw carrot. Make everything really easy for the person to process and digest so that they can get usable energy without having their digestive system having to work as hard.
Gosh, when you said nuts and seeds, I just was laughing because when I was raw vegan, that was like a huge part of my entire diet was nuts and seeds and all of that, and making like seed butter spreads, like cashew butter and almond butter, and then making almond milk and cashew milk, and then any sort of raw pies that you make, the crust is always just 100% nuts and seeds. And man, I think that just ruined my gut for a while.
Nuts and seeds, especially in the raw state, have so many things in it that your body has a hard time breaking down.
Yeah.
Plus, they're filled with the polyunsaturated fats. And, and if you follow Matt Blackburn, how much he's into not consuming any PUFA, as Pete is, as I am, PUFAs in themselves are trypsin inhibitors. So they're going to inhibit the breakdown of you trying to get protein. And so they're low protein foods anyway. So, you're not even getting what is available in that nut into your system.
Let's talk a little bit about that, because that's another subject that doesn't get talked about enough, and that is polyunsaturated fatty acids, and this idea that they're super healthy for you, and there's over a couple thousand, 2,200 studies, I think, touting the benefits of omega-3 oils. And we've had a number of people, even years ago, Adam Bergstrom and Professor Brian Peskin on the show, talking about, especially with fish oil, these things are pharmacological overdose. Like the body just doesn't know what to do with this much omega-3 in this rancid state. And so, we did shows with him, 2012, 2013, and talking about this. And it's, and Pete's been about this for a long time, and your work has been about this as well. But still, even with this information, people trying to get this information out, people are still taking, I think fish oil is the #1 supplement that's out, right?
100%. Yep, yeah. Still today. Mm-hmm.
Isn't that crazy? It's great marketing, right?
And I feel like the medical community is really slow in shifting when there's new information. I don't know if they're scared or because it gives people an immediate, taking fish oils can make people feel better. It helps with inflammation, so they get less pain. It will lower their cholesterol. So for the immediate results, they perform.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've heard people say that too, that, within a 30 to 45 day period, you could see some turnarounds. And then I think those sort of taper off over time, and people just equate it to, well, the body's just sort of, finding a new homeostasis and a new equilibrium there, and, it kind of wore off a little bit. So they continue taking them just because of the mental side that we were talking about before. You kind of keep doing something because you keep reinforcing ideas in your head. But I think after that, they're quite damaging, aren't they?
Yeah, 100%. I think most studies that show the positive the events of the polyunsaturated fats or the omegas, they're anywhere from like 4 weeks to maybe 6 months. So you don't really get to see the negative side of this. But if you look at some of the studies that have gone on that have utilized the polyunsaturated fats, what you start to see eventually is higher chances of cancer. You know, I mean, if you start to look at a lot of the research that's coming out lately, all of it is showing that taking all these omegas isn't doing anything for anybody's health. It's not really helping with diabetes. It's not helping with heart disease. It's not making you live longer. You know, so the question is, why are people continuing to take them? And like, again, maybe it's because it has lowered their cholesterol or made their pain go away, but it's not doing it in a way that's creating better health. It's just removing a symptom.
Yeah, and that's really challenging too, because that's one of the reasons why I got off the raw food diet, is because I just felt like eliminating an entire food group or type of food, whether it's animal foods or, you know, sugars or things, like I just felt like, you know, if I follow this really stringent way of eating for 40 years and I find out that I'm wrong, then I got to make sure, like, that's going to just suck, right? So I'd rather kind of take that middle path. And you could always supplement your way or change your lifestyle and your stress and your environment in such a way as to mitigate. If you go off the middle path a little bit too much with your diet, you can fix that with other lifestyle factor changes. And so I thought I'd rather kind of potentially be wrong doing that than go super extreme, be wrong, and then 40 years later just have thrashed health and I can't go back and change those 40 years, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I've done a lot of extreme diets in my lifetimes, extreme workouts. I mean, I was kind of just an extreme person. And what has happened while utilizing Ray's research and utilizing his diet, I have definitely tempered myself a lot. Yeah. And it kind of changed my personality per se, because I think I wasn't as high strung all the time.
Yeah.
And you see that with people, and you see it with people that I work with, and when they start changing and finally giving themselves sugars, that they don't feel so anxious or just so high, intensely strung. They feel just more relaxed. They might just not feel so intense. They feel like they can actually sit and not feel like that's a waste of time. So it's interesting what happens to people when they kind of shift to this way of eating.
So a few people have said on our show that, like, you know, the optimal blood sugar level in the morning, you know, you want to test in the morning, they say, and, you know, get your blood sugar around 85 or something like that in the morning. And, you know, it might spike up if you're healthy to, you know, 130, 150 a couple hours after a meal. What does Ray Pete, what do you say about, like, sugar levels? Should we be testing for that? Should we be aware of that? And also insulin levels as well? Like, should we be concerned if we're migrating to this diet too quickly and our blood sugar levels rise? What are your thoughts about all of that?
I don't have people take blood sugar levels.
Okay.
If you're coming from a place where blood sugar might be an issue, like you're diabetic or insulin resistant or you have metabolic syndrome, then that might be more of a concern, because obviously at that point we know that you're not handling sugars well. But for other individuals, the things that I measure are essentially their temperature and pulse. Because if you're utilizing sugars well, your temperature is going to rise post-meal. And that's what we're looking for. When you're dysregulated or you're having blood sugar issues, I mean, you're going to have temperature drops, you're going to have low pulse, and you're going to feel it in essentially your mood throughout the day. So, I mean, I have people pay attention to, like I said, how is their energy state? How is your mood through the day? How are you sleeping? All of those things to me are far more important, unless, again, you already have some blood sugar issues with, you know, being a diabetic or so forth.
So temperature and pulse, talk a little bit about each one of those things. That's interesting, because, you know, a lot of people do the underarm temperature first thing in the morning and test there and use that as a baseline. As far as temperature goes, when should you test and what should you be looking for, and how does it all tie in?
Well, initially, we use it as like a gauge as to how healthy you are initially. So you should be waking up with around a 97.8 temperature, and you should be getting up to about 98.6 during the day, which is like 37 degrees Celsius.
Okay.
And most people that are in a hypometabolic state are waking up, like when I first started, my temperature was around 95 in the morning, and I would get up to a nice warm 96.5 during the day.
Oh my gosh.
And so I was, as I like to say, I was quite efficient. Usually you'll see that with people that are aerobically fit.
Right.
And they will have a much lower pulse and a lower temperature. And that was me. And so that's where the cue was for me that something was wrong. And so by slowly, when you are in an efficient state and you use energy more efficiently, I mean, when you're out running for a marathon, you don't want to have to feel you have to eat every 20 minutes to keep things going. So your body says, hey, I'm going to conserve more energy so that you don't have to do that, and you can continue to run and not break down all your muscle mass while running for 4 hours. So you become more efficient, which is great for the marathon runner, but not for the person that wants to live a long life and have a high metabolism.
So you want your pulse to be high, right? Or higher is better?
I would say between about 75 and 90 beats a minute.
75 and 90. That's completely opposite, right? Than a lot of people say in the natural field is that the lower is better, but you're saying completely the opposite. 75 to 90. That's interesting.
Yeah, and if you actually go to your doctor, they'll usually say between about 60 and 100 beats is good.
Okay.
But in the fitness world, yes, lower is normally better. You know, and again, if you are an aerobic or a endurance athlete, you're going to have a low pulse. I mean, you're not if you don't, it's going to be really hard for you to perform at your sport well. You create efficiency, you know. But most marathon runners or long endurance runners don't live really long lives.
Right. Yeah. Do you test your pulse in the morning first thing and multiple times throughout the day, or how do you test it?
Well, I don't as much anymore, but with my clients, I have them check it first thing in the morning, and then I try to have them check it about 20 to 30 minutes after they eat through the day. So we want to see how their meals are reflecting upon what it's doing to the metabolic rate, because that's what we're using to try and increase metabolic rate, the energy in, right? Your body, when your body becomes more wasteful, meaning it produces more heat, CO2, ATP, then you're able to eat more, become warmer, and then the more energy is utilized within your system to do the things that you need to be doing. So your hormonal systems work better, digestive systems work better, you're able to put on muscle tissue with not as much effort. I mean, everything just starts working better.
Mm-hmm. Are you a fan of, not fasting, are you a fan of snacking? Like, do you think people generally do better if they snack often or if they eat 3 meals and don't snack in between?
I think it depends on the state of their health and how they work within their stressed life. So some people, if they don't have very good blood sugar regulation, they're going to work way better with more snacks. Okay. Because you basically are utilizing the sugar that they're ingesting to help regulate them, because their liver can't hold glycogen very well. So for them, I usually have them eat a lot of small meals frequently.
Interesting.
If you are in a healthier state, you can eat much larger meals, 3 times a day and be totally fine.
Interesting. Yeah, I for one, I like snacking, and I don't know what it is. I just like to have that constant source. I just like to snack, but sometimes I can go hours and hours and hours without eating too. And with that, I guess it all depends on context and what my health is like. But it seems like that would be a healthy state to be able to go long periods of time without food, right?
Yeah, I mean, your body should be able to go, especially through the night. You should be able to get through the night 8 to 10 hours without feeling that you need to have food. And when the body is healthy, I think people don't understand that sleeping is a highly metabolic state. And for you to get into deep sleep, you need to have a good metabolism. If you are not sleeping and you're waking up all the time, then you're probably in some sort of low metabolic state.
Do you think that if people are waking up to go pee, is that indicative of the metabolic state, or is that just indicative of their kidney health and that function there?
Well, I think kidney health is a sign of your metabolic state. To me, everything, how the health of the system is all revolving around the health of your metabolism. For me, when people come to me, it's never about trying to fix their specific issues. It's trying to fix the underlying low metabolic state and having your body utilize energy better, which seems to help regulate things and fix things.
Yeah, it's fascinating too. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, so I would say that if you're getting up to pee all the time, then there's a salt issue. It can just be that you're eating too much liquid before you go to bed, or throughout the day. But because that's another thing in the health history we like to do is consume copious amounts of water that we probably don't need, which gets people up all night peeing.
Yeah. Wow. Interesting. So this water thing. How much water do you drink?
Water itself?
Yeah.
I would probably say 1 to 2 cups a day, maybe, max.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I drink a lot of milk, a lot of juice, and I consume a lot of fruit. And you have to also, when your metabolism is high, you're going to produce water within the system as well. But pretty much all the food we eat has water in it. And so I'm going to get most of my sources with food that has minerals and sugars, because that's going to hydrate you a lot more than just water itself.
Yeah, because that water is perfectly formed, right? And it's in the right state for us to consume, and that makes sense.
Yeah, I think they just released a study talking about the 13 top most hydrating drinks. And skim milk, I believe, was on the top.
Really?
And I think like juice, whole milk. Yeah, water was like number 12.
Well, that makes no sense. That's so crazy.
No, the reason, water by itself with no minerals or no sugars is not nearly as hydrating as something that contains all the other things that your body needs to stay hydrated, right? There's nowhere in your body that there's just water.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, fast. So I was curious when you're talking about sleep and getting up in the middle of the night. It's interesting because most people will talk about, you need 8 hours of sleep, you need 6 hours, you need 10 hours, and there's studies showing the benefits and non-benefits of either one of those numbers. But then someone said something that makes a lot of sense. And he was saying that, for the longest time, for millennia, when man has been here, we never really slept through the night because we'd be sleeping out in the open plains. We'd be trying to protect our family, our tribe from lions and predators and things. And so you might sleep in shifts or you might sleep in trees or with one eye open kind of a thing. And so this idea that we have to have like 8 hours of solid sleep is sort of unnatural. But I don't know. I always feel better when I get a solid sleep,
Yeah, I would say, and like you said that with Ray, that, darkness is stressful. So if you work on more of our circadian rhythm, then you want to be asleep when it's dark. So it might change in the winter months versus the summer months. So you might want more sleep during the winter months versus the summer months, but I don't. To me, when we start looking into our ancestral years and we did all these other things that we don't do at all anymore.
Right.
And the fact is that we didn't live long lives back then. We all, I think the average caveman died at 32 years old. So it's hard to really put that into context now because we're trying to live longer and we don't know what worked back for them because they didn't live long.
Yeah, I think a lot of people do that, don't they? They say, well, what did an ancient man eat? And, people like the late Hal Huggins, Dr. Huggins would talk about people's ancestral diet, and what we should consume now should be in alignment with what we in our family and generations and times past ate. But, just because someone did something a lot of years ago doesn't mean that it was right, doesn't mean that it was a good thing, doesn't mean it was optimal for them. Just because if you look back and say, well, man slept in trees or we kind of slept with one eye open, that's what we should do now. I don't know. I just think that just because people did things in time past, like us, if we eat Twinkies right now and all this horribly processed food right now, and then in 2 million years, if people look back at our diet now, they shouldn't say to themselves in the future, I should eat Twinkies because we ate Twinkies today. It just doesn't make any sense,
No, not at all. I think if you look at, if you want to go back in time and go, like my grandmother lived to be 110, and she ate X, Y, and Z, I think we can utilize that information. But not for people that didn't live a long time. You know, it's irrelevant to me what they ate because we don't know how long they were going to live.
Right, right. Well, this has been awesome. I want to make sure to get you out on time. Tell people a little bit about what you do. You work with a lot of women, not just women, right? And you help them with their metabolism and with all kinds of different issues, right?
Yeah, I mean, I work with women and men, and they're usually, they could be athletes, they could just be stay-at-home moms, they could be, I just had a baby, or they're going through menopause or premenopause. I mean, they're making shifts in their life, and they might be going through a shift in their health, and maybe what they were doing is no longer working any longer. And I'm just going to create an entirely different set of information that's going to probably blow their mind a little bit and help them understand maybe why what they were doing isn't working anymore. I think my book is a good place to start. I think that it certainly opens up a lot of people's mind as to a different perspective. But you know, if they think they need more individual help, then yes, I do coach with them, and I work with people all over the world through Skype or Zoom or phone or however they want to do it.
That's cool. And do people sort of work with you on a weekly basis, or how does the process work?
I actually getting ready to shift it a little bit, but right now, essentially, I do usually monthly or toward 2 calls a month.
Okay.
And in between all that, I have them do food logging, which I have them send me every single week. So I review what's going on between the calls to make sure they're on the right page. And we make slow, steady shifts so that, you know, usually what's going to end up happening while working with me, you're usually going to end up eating more, working out less, resting more. You know, this is the complete difference of any other diet you've ever been on, because usually when you do a diet, you know, you always have to end up eating less and you're always working out a lot more. And it's basically the exact opposite, because we're trying to get your system working better. And with that, and what happens along the way is your digestion will improve, your sleep going to improve, your libido will improve. I mean, essentially everything will start getting better because we're giving your body energy it can utilize with nutrition it can utilize, you know. And there's one thing I do want to say, because I throw around the word sugar a lot, and it scares everybody. But what I mean by that is it's sugars with nutrition. So these are usually fruits, juice, roots, honey, dairy. You know, these aren't just tons of white processed sugar, but I'm not against that. I don't really think it's a bad food. It's a good energy source. It just doesn't have any nutrition with it. So for somebody that needs a lot of nutrition as well, it's not going to be the ideal food for them. But you know, ultimately, I'm here to change people's mindsets, because this is going to be a complete shift in how they're thinking, and that's a big part of it, because your brain is going to always want to go back to what it's used to. So it's a lot of coaching to help you get to a place where you feel more comfortable with this, because it takes a little bit of time to shift and have your body understand that this is what it really needs.
Do you do any work with women and men with fasting at all, or is that something you kind of steer away from because of that stress that happens?
Yeah, no, I don't do any fasting. It's not really part of my program. I mean, I think the only fasting you should do is while you're sleeping.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I mean, talk about a stress. I mean, a lot of people are promoting this intermittent fasting, and you know, I kind of do it just naturally. You know, I usually finish my meal around 6 or 7 at night, and I'm not hungry again until 9 or 10 in the morning, and I'm fine with that. But you know, a lot of people are fasting for 20 hours a day. You know, it's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you can do these things and sleep and feel good, and you're not running on stress hormones, then do whatever you want. I mean, I'm a big advocate that I think you should try things and see how they work for you, and depending on what you're looking for, then, you know, try different diets and whatever. But I mean, I'm here to work for the people that have put themselves in too much stress on many different levels, and that their body's becoming under energized, in a hypometabolic state, in a hypothyroid state. They're starting to still try to work really hard, and they're not getting the results they're looking for. And we've got to fix the foundation eventually, you know. And when the foundation is fixed, you can try it, whatever you want, you know. It might not get you healthier, it might lose you weight or whatever, but I think when the body is healthy, you can try other things and then always go back to the basis of fixing the foundation.
Well, I like your idea of eating more and working out less. I like that because it's kind of like you said, counterintuitive to everything that we're taught, even in a natural field. So do you work out a lot or a little, or probably a lot less than you used to, right?
A lot less, yeah. When I was in my peak, I would probably work out every day. I didn't even have a rest day, 2 hours a day.
Whoa.
On top of maybe teaching classes. And I mean, I was like the Energizer bunny.
Wow.
And so, and I did that for quite some time. And then I've done a lot of endurance events. So then on the weekends, I might go cycle for 4 to 5 hours. So it was a lot. It was kind of my personality, I thought.
Yeah.
And now I don't do even close to that. I've become much more of a introspective, looking within kind of person, which is kind of, I guess, maybe the stage of my life. And so like meditation is very important to me at this point. My deep breathing, you know, I just work out and do things very differently now.
Do you focus on weights or cardio, or which one?
If I work out or when I work out, it's weights.
It's weights, yeah.
Or I'm getting out. I mean, I like to be out in the sun, so I'll get out and walk in the sun. I go to the beach. I still do a charity event every year, which will entail me doing and training for a cycling event. Okay. But that is about it. Other than that, I'm not doing it. And that period of time, I've always have an understanding that when I train, temperature drops and pulse drops. Interesting. It's just part of the process. And then I go through a healing and then kind of repeat. So, you know, I mean, to me, because people sometimes read my book and they're like, I can't ever do any cardio. I'm like, of course you can. Yeah. You can do, if you love it, then you should do it. I mean, I'm a big believer, do whatever you love. But if you do it, eat properly, nourish yourself, make sure you rest enough, take time off, you know, make sure that you're keeping yourself in good health while you're trying to participate in these events that might be very anti-metabolic. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think that makes a lot of sense. You know, it depends what your goals are, it depends what you want to do. And some people, if they just want to lose weight or, you know, gain some muscle, and they're not concerned about their overall health or longevity for that matter, then that's their value system and that's their goals. And you know, it kind of just comes with what we do and what we choose. And so certain people want to live a long time, and so they're going to have to do different things, I guess, than someone who just wants to be, you know, 250 pounds with 3% body fat with shredded muscle. You know, just depends what your goals are.
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, I think goals are important, but to me, I'm always trying to help people understand what is best for your health, because I basically try to redefine it in my book. And when you go by the definition that I utilize, with health being equated to a high metabolic rate, then a lot of the things you might be doing now might not make any sense.
Good point. So people can find you. I brought up your website a couple times during the show if people are watching on YouTube, but they can find you at Kate, Deering, DEERING.com, and that's where they can schedule consultations with you and things?
Yes. So you can go to my site. You can email me from there. You can buy programs from there. They can follow me on Instagram or Facebook at Kate Deering Fitness on both of those.
Okay, cool, guys. If you guys are interested in fixing and healing your metabolism, I would highly recommend looking into Kate Deering and her work, because, you know, after doing 650 shows, and I've been involved in this industry since 2003. I really feel like she's onto something. I feel like Ray Peat's onto something. I feel like these people that are talking about thyroid health and sugars, I haven't done the milk thing yet, but it just seems like something just rings true for me. And if you know of anyone, women or men, that are looking to heal their metabolism, I would really recommend working with her, because I think she's onto something. And it's like alternative of the alternative spaces. So, Kate, thanks so much. I really appreciate your work.
Oh, thank you, Justin. Pleasure being on here.
All right. Well, I will be in touch with you via email. I'll send you the links and all that good stuff in the next couple of days. But yeah, I really appreciate your work, and thanks for being on and sharing your time with us. And I apologize for the audio issues at the beginning, but we worked through it.
Yes, no problem. No problem. You know what? Things happen.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Kate. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Have a good one. Bye.
You too. All right, guys. Well, there you go. Kate Deering. Her website, again, is katedeering.com. I have some things that I like to sort of flesh out with you guys, and I'm curious what your thoughts are. So I can hang out for a couple minutes before I go home, and I just wanted to let you know that I'll be here for the next couple minutes, and we'll be right back.
We hope you're enjoying this episode. Thanks for being on this health journey with us, and don't forget to check out biochargeme.com for hundreds of health products to build a better you.
That's right, my friends. Biocharge Me is our new store. We've just updated it a little bit, added some new links up at the top and all kinds of cool stuff in there. So we're constantly adding new products all the time to that store. That's sort of how we stay afloat. That's how we keep doing the work that we're doing, and that's how we do all the fun stuff that we're doing. So it's at biocharge.me if you guys are interested, and think about us anytime you're going to make a health purchase. So we really appreciate that. And so here's something that I'm a big fan of, and it's something that I want to share with you guys, is that our Relax Far Infrared Sauna is available now on Biocharge Me, and let me bring this up so you guys can take a look at it. And while I'm sort of clicking around, I'm going to play a little commercial from one of my favorite people in the entire world. His name is Dr. Stuart Nunley, and he is, in my opinion, the best and the most highly skilled biological dentist in the world. He lives in Marble Falls, Texas. So if you're looking to get your teeth fixed, he is our dentist. It means so much to us that we drove with 6-month-old twins all the way from California to Texas just to go see him. He's that good. But he was riddled. His body was riddled with mercury from extracting mercury fillings in people. And listen to what he did to overcome that.
You know what I chose to do? I chose to go very, very slow as I detox. So one of the things that I did is I invested in an infrared sauna, which was huge. That was a big, big part of my healing because, interestingly enough, many times patients who have heavy metal toxicity lose the ability to sweat. And so I was one of those. I could not break a sweat. And the infrared sauna helped me to retrain my body to be able to sweat. It was a huge part of my overall detox.
Doesn't Dr. Huggins say, as long as there's more going out than what's coming in, you're okay?
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think he's right. I think he's absolutely right on that.
Yeah, the late, great Hal Huggins, he was cool, wasn't he? Talking about detoxification, removing these heavy metals from our fat cells. And yeah, he was a great guy, Dr. Hal Huggins. And check out what Dr. Christopher Shade had to say about sweating.
How do I detoxify from plastics? I mean, you guys are using a sauna, and that's something I'd like to get. And what does the sauna do for us? A sauna is great, but it's moving a number of different toxins. Remember, we talked about the mice that if you put PCBs in there, then that made the mercury all that much worse. And sweating moves out a lot of plastics, volatiles, fat-based toxins. It's really good at moving those out, sweating those out. So that's how you're getting those out, and those are contributing to this synergistic soup inside the body. And so that's why they're good, is they're taking out a bunch of the different things in the soup.
Yep, my friends, and if you guys are looking for really great saunas, we've had a lot of different people ask about, some of the saunas that we have, and for the longest time we promoted the Relax Far Infrared Sauna, and we still do, and that's the one that I use every single day, the Relax Far Infrared Sauna. That's my favorite sauna, but there are some really great options out there. This one here that I'm showing on the website is from SaunaSpace, and it's the Zero EMF, and this is a near infrared technology, which is a little different. So it all depends on what you're interested in, what your goals are, kind of like what we're talking with Kate. What are your goals and what are your, things that you want to do? And so this near infrared sauna is really great. So we just recently put a link to all of our saunas on Biocharge Me. We have actually the really advanced ozone one, and that one is really cool because you could actually stream ozone. It's really expensive, it's almost $5,000, but if you want to combine ozone therapy with sauna, this is a really great option from our friends at Promo Life, and it comes with an ozone tank, an ozonator, and a full steam sauna that you can get in and start saturating your cells with ozone while you're sweating. So it's a tremendous thing. So we got all kinds of cool saunas available inside biocharge.me. And one of the other things I wanted to tell you too was our friend, we mentioned him a couple times during the show, Mr. Matt Blackburn. He's running a sale right now. Not a sale, kind of a discount specifically for Extreme Health Radio listeners. And it's been a long time. I've been a fan of enzymes for a long time, and enzyme therapy is huge. Dr. Nicholas Gonzalez was a fan of using a super high dose pancreatic enzymes during someone's cancer treatment. These proteolytic enzymes that help break down tissue and fibrosis in the body. And if you get into food, you inevitably get into pancreatic health, enzymes, digestion, and these types of things. So what Matt has is he has these really great enzymes for digesting food, but then he's also got one called Dissolvidol, which is basically a pancreatic systemic enzyme that helps break down fibrosis in the body. And if you look into the work of Dr. William Wong, he talks about fibrosis being the #1 cause of disease. So, I don't think there's any one cause of disease, but these are some really great enzymes, and I'm super happy to be able to get behind some enzymes. So currently I'm on these ones and Dissolvidol. I haven't tried the gluten savior ones yet, but these are basically for gluten. I don't really eat gluten, so we didn't get those. But his Panacea and Pure Shilajit product is really awesome. And as of just a couple of days ago, he's recently released a PUFA Protect. So this is basically a vitamin E formulation he's put together to help mitigate the damaging effects of PUFA, which, according to him and other people, basically starve the cells of oxygen. And so when you do that at a metabolic level, prevent the cells from respiration and oxygen, then there's some real issues. So PUFA Protect would be a great one to take if you're going to be consuming some kind of PUFA. So a couple cool things is that if you would like to purchase these, you can go through our link and you get right now it's a 25% discount if you use code EHR25. I don't know how long he's going to be doing that. So just to let you know, if you want to stock up now and get that 25% off is a massive. And then also, if you make any purchases, we'll give you access to our Extreme Health Academy free for 30 days as a bonus. So no matter what you purchase from our store, just let me know, send me the receipt, and I will give you a coupon code for the Extreme Health Academy for 30 days for free. So let me dive into the chat room here and see what you guys are talking about, and if you have anything that you would like to ask me. Let's see. A lot of cool people talking. Okay, cool. Let me sort of go through here. What were you deficient in, just out of curiosity? It would be so nice if we all just knew the exact way we should eat. Yeah, I agree. It would be nice to know how to eat. It's interesting, isn't it, though? Because I think that there's a difference between what we should be eating, and I think that what we should eat at certain times will change based on stress and time of life and time of season and time of day even. If you look into the work of Adam Bergstrom, he talks about how we should be eating at different different things at different times. Like he goes into the whole solar nutrition diet, and that is basically, that doesn't have anything to do with restricting certain food groups in as much as it does eating at the right foods at the right time. So he kind of goes into the circadian cycles of the organs, saying that every organ has an optimal time of building and cleansing. And so there's an optimal time, and then there's 12 hours later, there's the shunt to that organ. So the liver might be, for example, I don't have it memorized, but somewhere around like 1 to 3 in the morning would be the optimal time to do something for the liver. And then 1 to 3 in the afternoon would be the shunt to that, where you do the opposite. So basically, all our organs run off a circadian rhythm, and then you tie that to the circadian cycles and the diurnal cycles of the day and the nighttime. And so what he says is when the sunrise or the sun rays hit certain foods, certain plant materials or animals at certain angles, then that is the most optimal time for us to eat. So, for example, when the sun rises, the first substances that are going to catch the morning rays, the UVA and UVB light sun rays, are trees, because the fruits in the trees will catch those rays first. So fruit should be eaten in the early part of the day, first thing. And then as the sun continues to rise, then the lower sort of shrubs and bushes and things and animals that sort of reside closer to the crust of the earth, that's when you should eat those substances. And then as the sun begins to set, things that are lower down in the earth should be consumed, like carrots, root vegetables, fish, because essentially fish are under the ground. And so you have this rhythmic cycle of eating according to the diurnal cycles of the sun. And so that makes sense, you know? So I don't think that any one person has the optimal way to eat. I think it changes for every person, and I think you just have to experiment. And the thing that's kind of a bummer is that, you know, you wish that there was a blueprint for how we should all eat. But just like Kate was saying during the show, I mean, the things that she's talking about are completely antithetical to what's going on in the alternative mainstream. Because there's the mainstream, and then there's the alternative mainstream. And the alternative mainstream says milk is bad, sugar is bad, fasting is good, and all these types of things. And whereas Kate, and along with Adam Bergstrom and people like Professor Brian Peskin and Ray Peat, and a ton of other people are saying just the opposite. Like, we need to increase our metabolic rate. We need to increase our nervous system and how our metabolism runs. So the more efficient we're running, the more energy we'll have. And so that makes sense, you know, but everyone's going to be different. And so unfortunately, it's just kind of a bummer that we don't have really a blueprint for everyone, you know. You may eat meat right now and that might work for you. And then in 6 months, you may decide that meat's not working for you. So Tina says here, Ray Peat's work has saved my life. That's cool. Rob says the same thing. No way. That's cool. Yeah, Ray Peat is really onto something, and I really like the work that he's doing. But again, with Ray Peat, I mean, there's a chance that he could be wrong about a lot of things as well, right? I mean, we're all just basically like humans that are on the earth trying to do research and trying to get as close to the truth as possible. But I feel like certain people just try to be sort of instigators for the sake of being an instigator, and they like to sit on the outskirts and just ruffle feathers and, I don't know, just do it just to do it. But I mean, that doesn't mean that what they're saying is wrong either. But I really do think that Ray Peat, Matt Blackburn, Kate Deering, Adam Bergstrom, I think they're onto something with this. I really do. I think that I really think that people should look more into that work, because it just makes a lot of metabolic sense. And who wouldn't like to have a program where you eat less or eat more and work out less, right? Like, how amazing would that be? So I would recommend trying it. And if you know of anybody that has metabolic issues, maybe bloating, digestive issues, lack of sex drive, lack of ability to sleep, lack of energy, a lack of drive, low hormones, these types of things, I think that someone like Kate Deering could really help. So, you might want to pass this show on to them if you wouldn't mind. That would be really great. And they could learn about this kind of way of eating and get some insight and try something different, For me personally, I haven't really jumped on the bandwagon of consuming a lot of sugar. I do eat more sugar than I used to. And the sugar that I do eat is usually coming from food, like fruit, or something high in minerals, like something like honey, things like that. So that's what I've been experimenting with lately. And so I think it's just really important to experiment and to see what's working for you. It's like the ultimate mitigators or standards of health are pretty simple. People want to go for these super expensive blood tests, which I'm not against, but do you have energy? Do you have drive? Are you motivated? Are you positive? Can you sleep well? Do you have a sex drive? Do you have energy to get through the day? Do you have high metabolism? do you poop on a regular basis? Like all these things are just such simple ways to look at your health that we don't need all these numbers and tests. If all those are going well and you're eating somewhat clean diet and happy, then I'd say you're doing great, but the problem is that when we get into blood testing, it becomes challenging because we look at numbers and, whenever we have numbers, we have labels that match those numbers, and then we have these different people saying that those numbers don't even work. Like, for example, Adam Bergstrom was saying, like, when they test on people's vitamin D levels, they're not looking in the right spot. Like, they're looking in the blood serum. They should be looking at the fat. And with vitamin D, there's over 100 different types of vitamin D. So which type of vitamin D are they looking at? Which type is low? Which type is high? And so, and then Jack Kruse on top of that says any lab tests that's been done in fake man-made blue light, which we didn't even really get into on this episode, but anytime that blood is exposed to non-native EMF in the form of high-frequency blue light, which is going to be in any hospital or doctor's office, right? So when that blue light hits the blood in those tubes, then it essentially changes, everything. And so Dr. Kruse, he's a big fanatic about light, as am I, but he goes so far as to say that, like, you can't even test or trust blood tests anymore because, it's exposure to non-native EMF in the form of blue light. So, and then a lot of people on the other side are saying blood testing is good, and some people say blood testing is bad because it's really just a snapshot in time. It's just showing you what your blood was doing at a certain point in time, and, it's like a picture. Take a picture, but then 5 minutes after the picture, you're a different person. So we're dynamic. Every moment is different. And so I think ultimately blood tests are good. You can check them out, but just, make sure to keep them in check if you're going to do blood testing. Which, by the way, looking more into the work of iron and Morley Robbins, who, if you follow us on Instagram, we had him on our show a while back, and minerals and magnesium and copper and things like that. Based on his recommendations, I'm going to be donating blood. So according to Morley Robbins, iron overload is a real issue in people. And what happens is this iron gets oxidized from a lot of different sources. And sometimes they say that light, biophotons from the sun, spreads what's called lipofuscin. And this is this oxidized lipids in combination with iron overload. And this is what causes like these liver spots and these different things in the body. I don't know if all that's true. I mean, it seems like it is, and Morley's really on top of it, and he's a smart guy. And he says that we are overdosed on iron in our culture, and you can tie iron back to basically all disease. So what he recommends is increasing the amount of magnesium, because that helps to regulate iron, and donating blood. If you're a man, donating blood at the change of every season or 4 times a year would be optimal to release some of that excess stored iron, and to release some of that bound copper that's in your body to be able to regulate these minerals in your body. And then, so a man 4 times a year, donating blood is one of the best things you could do, according to Morley Robbins. And then, if you're a woman, twice a year. And then after you're done menstruating and you're in menopause, then you should follow the men and donate 4 times a year as well. So I should have asked Kate that. That would have been kind of cool, don't you think, to ask her? I wonder what she's looked into as far as iron panels go and things. Rob says here, I was studying fats recently, and if you look at the amount of omega-3 found in human breast milk, it's extremely low. Interesting. But Rob, we need omega-3 fats to build our brains, don't we? We got to have omega-3 fats, right? That's what people tell us. We should be giving our babies omega-3s to build our brains. That's what they say, right? But it's interesting. If we do need it, then what Rob was saying is interesting. Why is there a low amount of omega-3 found in breast milk? I'd like to look at that. If breast milk is designed to grow the baby's brain and has low omega-3, it really does make me question the necessity of taking in high amounts of omega-3. Yeah, interesting, right? According to, what were their names? George and Mildred Byrne, or Burr or something like that in the early 1900s. They were the ones where, you know how when people say there's 2,000, 2,200 studies that are promoting the health benefits of omega-3 fatty acids. It was George and Mildred Burr that propagated this idea and suppressed the vitamin E idea, which is in that PUFA Protect that Matt talks about. And it's at that time after the world wars and things where the omega-3 started becoming way more popular. And so according to Brian Peskin, like, we don't need this pharmacological overdose of omega-3 fatty acids, specifically fish oils. Like, he says that stuff is just toxic. And I thank God I never really took it too much. I took a little bit of omega-3 for a while there. I never really got into the fish oil thing, so I'm thankful for that. It just doesn't make any sense to me that you would be consuming this high-grade rancid oils in such high amounts, So, fortunately, I never really took much, but essentially, if what they're saying is true, this stuff is suffocating our cells. And so a lot of times we'll say, like, how do we increase oxygenation of the tissues? And we'll say, well, you can take a bath with hydrogen peroxide in it, and that helps. You can do foot baths with DMSO and hydrogen peroxide, increase oxygenation of the cells. You can take B vitamins and clean up the blood, or lactic acidosis. You can breathe through your nose, which helps increase carbon dioxide in the body, and that helps the hemoglobin transfer oxygen better. You can do incline bed therapy, and that increases oxygen in your body. There's all kinds of different ways to increase oxygen. But why don't we ask ourselves, like, why are we deficient in oxygen? Like, if you go to the hospital and they do a pulse oximeter test on you, and you're below 92, they don't even let you leave. Why are we low in oxygen? And so what people are saying now is that this lipid peroxidation and this lack of magnesium and this high amounts of iron and polyunsaturated fatty acids, what it's doing is basically strangling every one of your 30 trillion cells from being able to transfer oxygen but also utilize oxygen properly. So it makes more sense to me that instead of like starving ourselves of oxygen by eating the wrong things and then trying to do these weird things to get more oxygen into the body. Ozone therapy is another way to bring more oxygen, O3, into the body. Instead of doing all that, why don't we just get rid of what's causing the low oxygen to begin with? I mean, that makes sense, right? So what's causing that is stress, iron overload, polyunsaturated fatty acids. At least that's my understanding today. A lot to look at, when it comes to our health. So hope you guys enjoyed that show. Please pass it on, or if you guys want to tag us on Instagram, and I'd love to see what you think about it and share it with your friends. That would be cool. So if you want to support the work that we're doing, I realize we may have a lot of new listeners, and if you guys would like to subscribe to us, you can do that on your podcast app, anywhere that's located, on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, and all those ones. You can do that. Or subscribe to us on YouTube as well. That way you don't miss the shows that we do. We're doing about 2 shows a week now. Sometimes we're doing a third one. The Wednesday show was designed to sort of be kind of extra, but I feel like those are filling up. There's a lot of people that we need to talk to and spread the word about what they're doing. So, hey, Tina, I'd be curious to know in what way you say Ray Peat's work has saved your life. I'm curious to know a little more about that. That would be interesting to hear. Make sure to subscribe to the show so you don't miss anything. Our newsletter is probably the best way to do that on our website, extremehealthradio.com. And we'll send a couple times a week letting you know about sales. Like right now, the sale from Matt Blackburn, the enzymes are available for 25% off. So we let you know about that, and our live shows as well. And just trying to get to the root cause of this and what's actually going on with our health, and trying to understand how our health is best optimized for today's crazy, weird world. We're living in a different time now, so it's really important for us to change our biology so that we can adapt to the 5G, to the non-native EMF, all that kind of stuff. Beck, thank you again, Justin, for another great show. You're welcome. I hope that, she brought some good insights and, some things that might make you think. And, I suggest reading her book and learning about it. Because for me, I think that someone like this work is really liberating. Because for so long we've been taught that sugar is toxic, sugar is poison, and sugar is what ages us and causes all disease and all this kind of stuff, and milk is bad. And so this is kind of a cool like way to look at everything with a completely different mindset and say, hey, like maybe eating more and working out less is going to heal me. So check out katedeering.com. So love hanging out with you guys, and we'll be back on Monday. Let me see who's coming up Monday. We have Dr. Garrett Smith. We'll be talking about vitamin A, glyphosate, so that's going to be interesting. And next Friday is going to be a really fascinating show with Barbara Frank. First of all, next Wednesday, we may have our Dr. Stuart Fishbein in the studio for a live show on Wednesday, and he is our doctor that we use for the home birth here in California with Kate, and what a great guy. He's the only doctor in California that's medical doctor able to deliver twins at home. So he's just a tremendous guy. We'll probably be talking a lot about this vaccine issue too. So that's going to be a good show on Wednesday. So Garrett Smith on Monday, talking about vitamin A and glyphosate. And then next Friday is going to be a fascinating show with Barbara Frank, and she's an herbalist from times past. And we'll be talking with her about parasites and how, in her work, parasites is the #1 cause of all disease. Wrinkles, aging, hair loss, gray hair, digestive issues, Crohn's, colitis, aging is all parasites. And she says that we have parasites on every layer of our body, from the epidermis all the way through to the internal organs. And if you consider the fact that we have 30 trillion cells, 30 to 50 trillion cells, we probably have 10 times that in terms of parasites and other organisms that live within us. And so she says that it's these parasites that are causing all of these health issues. So that's going to be a fascinating show. She's got some remedies. So we'll talk with her next Friday. So make sure to subscribe so you don't miss anything that we have going on. And is there anything else to get to? I don't think there's anything else to really get to. If you guys want to join the Extreme Health Academy, I'm always there in the forums there. So that's available, and I'm in there just about every single day, helping you guys out and answering questions. And I may not have all the answers, but I can definitely point you guys in the right direction. So a lot of resources that I have at my disposal. So I'm always available inside the Extreme Health Academy. And if you're watching this and you want to join on YouTube, there's a link down below, and you can use the code EHR14 and get a free 14-day trial. This coming week, we're going to be releasing the 5G workshop that we did with Ken Rolla. That's going to be coming out in the Extreme Health Academy this week. So we're really excited about that. So if you're looking for mitigation strategies, this was tremendous. 2.5-hour workshop. So resources, websites, tools, protocols, everything to mitigate what's going on with EMF. So anyway, love you guys. Rob, thank you so much. Rebecca, thanks so much. Tina, you guys are awesome. I really appreciate you guys being here. Big Fat Mama, Kinjo51, Cut Nut 250A, Thiago, you guys are great. So thanks for, there's so many other people. Mike, oh my gosh, Eric, Lucy, Sue, Big Fat Mama, you guys are awesome. So I really appreciate you guys being here. You guys are amazing. I'll see you on Monday. Love you so much, and we'll catch you guys on Monday at 10:45 a.m. Pacific time. Have a great weekend, guys.
No material on this blog is intended to suggest that you should not seek professional medical care. Always work with qualified medical professionals, even if you educate yourself in the field of live food, nutrition, and alternative medicine. I'm not a doctor, nor am I offering readers medical advice of any kind. None of the information offered here should be interpreted as a diagnosis of any disease, nor an attempt to treat or prevent any disease or condition. While information in this blog is discussed in the context of numerous conditions, it can be dangerous to take action based on any information in this blog, or to start any health program without first consulting a health professional. The content found here is for informational purposes only, and is in no way intended as medical advice, as a substitute for medical counseling, or as a treatment/cure for any disease or health condition, and nor should it be continued as such. Always work with a qualified healthcare professional before making any changes to your diet, prescription drug use, lifestyle, or exercise activities. This information is provided as is, and the reader/viewer assumes all risks from the use, non-use, or misuse